introduce our speaker. Carol Rogers joins us today from St. Louis suburb Chesterfield, Missouri. She received a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology in 1971 from Washburn, and later a Bachelor of Science in Finance and an Executive MBA from Washington University, St. Louis. Carol has enjoyed an investment advisory career that spans nearly 40 years. She is the President, CEO, founding partner, and senior financial consultant at wealth management firm Rogers & Company. Carol began her career as a partner at Central Research Corp. Before joining E.F. Hutton in 1976. She was one of the company's leading brokers, becoming a vice president and member of the Chairman's Council. Carol resigned from E.F. Hutton in 1986 to form what is now Rogers & Company. She was named Broker of the Year by Registered Representative Magazine in 1997. Rogers & Company has received numerous honors and accolades, and Carol was named one of the top 50 independent woman advisors by Barron's. She serves on the board of Benedictine College and is a member of the Executive MBA Alumni Board for Washington University and is a member of Washburn Women's Venture Partners. Carol has learned to be true to herself, listen to others, and go big or go home. In her presentation this morning, Beyond Washburn Lessons Learned Outside the Classroom, she will discuss these teachings and the gratitude she has for those who taught her along her journey. Welcome back to campus, Carol Rogers.
I never knew this many people would get up this early in Topeka. Thank you, and I'd like to thank you very much, President Barley, distinguished guests. You know, I'm going to tell you right away that at my firm, my associates, I did not know this until the last couple of years, they call me Unfiltered Friday, and it must be because on Monday I have the highest energy and it starts going down, and on Friday, whatever somebody asks me, it just comes out. It's not Friday, but it's close enough. So my comment is, you know, as I was driving from St. Louis, this is really like coming home. I grew up in Topeka. I did all my growing up years in Topeka. And I'm of the class at Washburn that were in all the trailers, remember, after the tornadoes? So I'm a trailer park graduate. And I will tell you that as I was thinking about this, I thought, you know, I'm going back to Topeka. Well, thank you for the introduction. I did feel quite old after that, but coming back, I kept thinking, you know, I've been gone from Topeka so long. You know, if unfiltered, if I screw up, who's going to know? Well, then I realized I know half the people in this room. That's frightening. So thank you very much. So when I originally sat down to put this talk together, I began with the idea of I thought I was going to be sharing with current students, which I will be doing later, but you were all, I guess we're all students continuously. Some of the important lessons that I learned along the way, and I think even as I was learning the lessons, sometimes I didn't know I was. It's kind of like looking in the rearview mirror. So I decided that my view of the lessons might actually be too narrow. And so I think it was just last weekend I decided, you know, my lessons aren't everybody else's lessons. I'm going to go ask distinguished, sophisticated, successful people that I know. Give me some of their ideas. Some of them are sitting here in this room. 4 of them are prominent Washburn graduates, and so I wanted them to share with me. And I sent out an email. A couple of you got these. It just said hindsight. I said, in hindsight, if you had to give one of your strongest recommendations to students today, in hindsight, what would that be? And so I'm going to share some of those thoughts because I thought it would actually broaden some of the things that even I have felt. So today I'm going to share some of those lessons with you, and I will tell you that I continually have to do continuing education. And if I know exactly how many chapters and exactly how many pages, I can get through it. But if it's open-ended, I feel like I'm never getting to the end. So I have 16 lessons, and I'll try to go through them quickly. I will tell you that coming home, and now that I know how many people are in the room, I get the pleasure of my sister Terry has joined us. Richard Ross, who is about to retire after 40 stellar years, outlasted most of the legislature, the governors, etc. distinguished Washburn alum. I have friends from my high school class. Tom and Joe that are here amaze me. I have my friend Patty, who is my first, probably best friend from first grade, which means you're as old as I am. And somehow or other, she convinced her husband to come. So I thank you all. I'm leaving the fact that Professor Judy Dipley, I'm leaving her to last because as my cousin, when she heard that I was going to speak, I don't know exactly what she said, but what I heard was, "Oh, good God, please don't be boring." That's what I heard. So, my first lesson today is that really, the lessons learned outside of the classroom include a lot that we didn't know that we were learning along the way. So my next example is to thine own self be true, or what I call pack your own chute. So I chose skydiving because I'm actually a former skydiver, much former. And throughout life, I think that many of our challenges and opportunities are a lot like free falling. And the thought of skydiving was always very intriguing to me, although I think my mother almost had a heart attack. So actually sitting in the plane, you have your chute, you have your reserve. The very first jump I ever made, the person in front of me did a Mae West, the cord over the parachute, falling fast, have to use your reserve. Scared the Jesus out of me. And I was next. So one of the analogies that I received, and this is from the chairman of a corporation that I do some business with that probably runs about $300 billion. His analogy of this is that everyone is scared, not just you. And so most people think that they're the only ones who are scared. I'm sure we've all experienced this. I don't know a person that is not scared when the stakes are at the highest. The difference is successful people face their fear and work through it. Fear can paralyze. The strength isn't the absence of fear, rather it's the ability to work through it when it matters most. I can probably highlight dozens of times in my life where I thought I was on the precipice about to fall over. Having spent the majority of my career in the world of investments and also wealth management, no small surprise, we are relentlessly challenged. And the financial environment is constantly changing. It always creates uncertainties, and even though when we look at things that have what we call a high probability of success, there's never any guarantees. It's just like life. So experience has taught me to be rigorously honest in essentially everything, and I think that is one of the things that leads to long-term success, even when it's most difficult, even when I am being unfiltered. So another analogy is that life isn't always black and white. So long ago we created a mantra for our firm that's called non-negotiable integrity. It always gets us through those gray areas. And my next lesson was the listen with the ear of your heart. And this is actually from the rule of St. Benedict, because a part of my education was also with the Benedictines. So the other thing that I will point out is listening beyond me-go. Have any of you ever experienced me-go before? I don't know whether I heard this or whether I created it, but to me, me-go is my eyes glaze over. So sometimes I've been in conversations, if you found yourself, kind of drifting off, listening to the background noises, watching cloud formations, not really paying attention. So I think that if you're going to listen with your heart, you have to make a point of absolutely making your attention be truly listening, engaging in the deepest conversations. The comment that I received actually from a Mormon bishop was, compassionate listening is the rule of thumb for just about everything. And so I'm going to give you my analogy because I drove from St. Louis to Topeka. And being a Cardinal fan, driving, although I did go to a Royals, I went to a Royals training camp this year. Driving by the Royals Stadium, I thought, here's another thought, because I know that you are all Royals fans. I think a great lesson about focusing, about listening, is to watch the duel that you see between a pitcher and a batter. You know, their mind is thinking about all the things that they've learned about the opposing player. They think about how the team is positioned, you know, where everyone is at that point in time. And then I think that what I've heard, we do work with some baseball players, they say, you know, it's kind of like they take a deep breath and they learn to relax. And then they focus their entire attention on the opposite person. And what they're doing is they are they're searching for that optimal choice where either they're going to have a winning strikeout or a winning hit. The comment, the corollary that I received from one of the people that I requested was, be in the present. Slow down, appreciate the ride. Although we look and plan forward, it's a shared reflection on the people, the places, the experiences that add richness to our lives. More simply, just pay attention and put down the silly phone. Commentary. So, lesson 4, learn repeatable processes of how to learn. The corollary is as much about how to learn as it is what to learn. When I first joined E.F. Hutton, I'll date myself, in 1976, you know, the investment in the wealth management world had about 600 mutual funds. Now there's 7,000, and that doesn't even include what we call exchange-traded funds, ETFs, which there are thousands of them. The typical U.S. household, about 5% of households owned mutual funds. Now it's well over 50 or 60%. There was no analytical financial planning software. Today, we have so much that's actually in the cloud. And I'm kind of referring back to what it was like. You know, global investing consisted of owning maybe a small little batch of European stocks. And the analyst didn't have to speak Hindi or Mandarin or Russian. You know, there wasn't that many choices. So the world has gotten much more complex. And, you know, if we wanted to send a message to a client, we can Facebook or tweet or Twitter or whatever we're doing today. I mean, we took out a piece of paper, we took out an envelope and a stamp, and we wrote a note. If I had a group of students in this class, I might have to ask them if they knew what that was, because the world has changed so much. So one of the lessons that I learned at Washburn was a really disciplined, organized method of how to learn. I may not have actually been aware of it at the time, but over the years, I see how critically important a system is to keep up with all of the vast changes. It seems that you know, the world is changing so rapidly that it's equally important to know how to learn. The analogy that I received was, being busy does not always mean real work. The object of all work is production or accomplishment, and to either of these ends, there must be forethought, system planning, intelligence, and honest purpose, as well as perspiration. Seeming to do is not to do. And as Susie said, go big or go home. I think everybody probably knows John Wooden, the winningest basketball coach in history. I had the pleasure with a group of about 15 people having lunch with John Wooden about 15, 20 years ago. The man was absolutely, totally amazing. And some of you are aware that he literally had, he started with the most simple lessons with every player he ever had, including Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, that he always called Louis Alcindor, and Bill Walton. Anyone who played with him, the first lesson he taught them was how to put on athletic socks. Because he felt that they had to be smooth. They couldn't have seams where there might be blisters. And his comment was, little things can add up to big results. Because it was his opinion that when you play a game, the foundation of the game are your feet. And your feet cannot be harmed in any way, or it can affect the entire game. The comment that, or the quote that Wooden gave, which is really too small here, is, success is peace of mind. which is a different result of self-satisfaction in knowing you made the effort to do your best, to become the best that you are capable of becoming. And I will tell you that this little pyramid of success, he went through that in his talk, and he went through this pyramid of success with every player that ever played for him. And you can't see, but some of them are compassion and honesty, integrity. This is how he taught his players. And at the end of his speech, what John Wooden was most proud of, he would go through every player, the highlights. He would tell you who they were married to, how many children they had, what they did in their career afterwards, what contributions they were making to society, rather than the awards that he made as his own coach. So, this is a quote, and I'll actually give you this is Richard Ross's quote. Take advantage of the opportunities to learn as much as you can about as many things as you can. As a student, and we're always students, you will never have as much time for this purpose. Get to know your professors, or get to know the other people that are surrounding you. They are willing to help you outside the classroom if you take the initiative to ask. I do have one side story. I had a group of young men that were going to WashU, and their fathers and mothers were my clients, and so they would get homesick, they would hang out at my house. And one of them that just I think is even today an exceptional young man, he said to me, you know, if you were back on campus today, what piece of advice would you give me? And you know, you just do it off the top of your head. And I said, well, the first thing that I would do is I would go introduce myself to the chancellor. And I apologize, President Farley, in case somebody follows up on this. I'd go introduce myself to the chancellor, and I'd ask to have lunch with him. And I will tell you that what he did is he went up to the Chancellor Danforth at the time, and he said, Chancellor Danforth, I think that you know Carol Rogers, and she suggested that I should come to you and ask if we could have lunch. But he didn't say, could we have lunch? He said, I'd like to have lunch with you every month while I'm on campus. And Chancellor Danforth, you know, not wanting to burn the bridges, said, well, son, why don't we have lunch and try it out once? I will tell you that this student had lunch with the chancellor almost every quarter for 4 years when he graduated, and that connection has followed him throughout his life. I mean, it's amazing. So, this next one, when I'm on a campus, I always use this quote, and sometimes I see certain people cringe, but I'm going to read it to you. This is a Steve Jobs quote, in case you can't see it. Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, there's a few in this room I know, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They change things. They push the human race forward, and while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. My other quote from Steve Jobs, which my family will probably recognize as being very simpatico for me, rules are made for those who follow them. You know, perhaps, and some of you know me, so I hear you, perhaps with the Silicon Valley never-ending search for disruptive technology, we even call it Uber disruption these days, we don't need to highlight this point since we often, you know, we either embrace it or we oppose some of the changes that we're seeing because they're happening so rapidly. But often, what we consider to be near instant survival is dependent upon a lot of the technology that we're seeing in place today. But I've learned that this same mentality is equally applicable for the small elements of life and business as it is for the big ones. The comment that I received from the woman that did the marketing for Dove out of New York that started in Europe, her quote was, always remain curious. Come from that place of curiosity and learning your whole life and bring the enthusiasm of a child to all you do. I loved that one. Make great friends with discomfort. Let's try this. I'm sure that you've seen this before. Everybody, cross your arms. Have you done this before? Look down and see which arm is on top. Okay? Now switch. Was that difficult? Which is right? Which is the right way to cross your arms? There's no best way. There's only different ways to fold your arm. And one of the things that we do is we do what's most comfortable for us. Okay? So the corollary is break the mold every day. The reality is that most of us get stuck in patterns that are most comfortable for us. Some of this is good, but sometimes avoiding discomfort keeps you from learning new and maybe better ways. So for those of us of a certain age, which is a great majority here, you know the old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Okay, for a few of you that don't fit this mold, you can't teach a young dog old tricks. You have to learn on your own. All right, let's go forward. There we go. Step outside the herd. Most of us have a pretty good sense of our own fundamental boundaries. And there are many things that we know that when you're approaching them, you know what is the absolute yeses that you're comfortable with and what are the absolute no's. But I suspect that if we surveyed this entire room, we would find that much of what made each of us what we are today rose from those situations that were uncomfortable, uncertain, and we had to take action. And so as Steve Jobs would say, it's okay to be a little crazy. It's important to make friends with discomfort. The reason that these are important lessons is they help us at those times when we have to make a decision, even though we are uncertain. So my experience is that when you face challenging choices, you have to take a litmus test. My litmus test is, what is my first reaction? And I found that the yeses come real quickly and very easily, and I found that that's generally true with the absolute no's. Okay? So that leaves those times when you are uncertain, and I would suggest that just with a calm assessment of the situation, when you're better able to see the boundaries, there's an absolute line between no and uncertain. And most times when hesitancy arises, it's the unfamiliarity. You know, there's an overall statement that says, when in doubt, just say no. My corollary is, when in doubt, just say yes. I suggest that as an alternative from time to time, as long as you just kind of keep your antenna, you know, up so that you kind of have a feel for yourself. I use the mountain path as an example. It's a good way of imagining approaching an uncertain time. Because typically when you would approach a swinging bridge, which I've only done once in my life, there's about three things you can do. One, you can freeze and absolutely do nothing. Secondly is you can kind of haphazardly move across, heart racing, you know, panting, and get across. And the third is that you resolve. You look at it, you assess the situation, head high, march forward, walk across it, always be aware that if there's a small swing, you're prepared for it. Or as one of my contacts said, never burn a bridge, but always keep it in good repair. So the next lesson was celebrating being outside the box. You celebrating yourself. Make peace with who you are and enjoy it. So while it's important to maintain a sense of what is acceptable in social circles or professional circles that you find yourself in, it's also important to express yourself. And for a number of really good reasons. There is a study on the science of what they call human flourishing. And it shows that self-expression plays a significant role both in happiness as well as in peak performance. And when we enjoy who we are and what we do, we perform more optimally. In addition, it gives people a chance to see the genius or the genuine you. We need to be authentic even if we are a little quirky at times. So express yourself and weave it into the world around you. And a comment that I will attribute to Cynthia Heath, who is one of the people responsible for my being here today and a great lover of Washburn and not able to join us. However, you must master the educational requirements and skills to have the opportunity to exercise the force of your own personality. Opportunities come to those who prepare for them, and success is when you see and seize the opportunity. You never know. I actually love this one. Sometimes it is the people no one imagines anything of who do the things no one can imagine. And the example that I will use is about 2 years ago, one of my associates and I were reading through the St. Louis Business Journal, and we were talking about the different people that we didn't know and all of the amazing things they were doing. And so we created an event. We call it Wine, Women, and Wednesday. We call it wine because that's how we get them there. And we invite 15 to 20 women every 2 months, and we basically say, you know, you have been invited because you are recognized as a successful person, one that has been recognized in the industry, and there are other people that would like to know you. And so we'll have a group of 15 or 20 people, have a small buffet line, have a glass of wine, and then we will gather them together and we go around the room. And I say, and sometimes people say, okay, Carol, give us your stick. And I go, no, this is not about me. This is about all of the people that are in this room. I want you to go around the room, introduce yourself, tell them what your business is, talk about your family, your children, the kinds of challenges that you've had in life, if you're comfortable sharing them. Where are your successes? Where are your failures? As a matter of fact, I think you ought to invite a speaker that comes in that talks about their failures instead of their successes. I think those are great lessons. And by the time we're around the room, people get to know each other. I say, if you were walking down the street, you might pass this person. You wouldn't have the opportunity of knowing them. Look at the people that are in this room. Do you know everyone that's here? These are people that you should know. It is an opportunity that you shouldn't pass up. And so, after we do this, amazing things actually happen. People find connections. They find out that somebody just moved to St. Louis. They haven't found a way to break the circles. They find charity events. They do all kinds of things. Cynthia Heath and I have worked with an inner city school, which all of a sudden we are raising money for scholarships because of the people that were in this room. It's a fabulous thing. So, however, speaking of quirky, one of my associates did say to me, as it says, you never know who is there. The comment she made was, never talk about somebody in a room and use their last name because they will be standing behind you. It's another lesson. Hopefully the journey is never over. We keep moving forward. I'll give you a quote. We keep moving forward, opening new doors and doing new things because we're curious. And curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. You know, Walt Disney, St. Joe, Missouri, started his life with this little black and white mouse. He wasn't even cute. And now, even today, the Disney organization is celebrating tremendous success with their new Star Wars. They're recreating their, their Disneylands and their theme parks. So the road to success didn't end with Walt, nor should it for any of us. The following comment came from a gentleman who runs a Fortune 500 company out of California. And actually, when I read the first line, I thought he was pulling my leg. So the first line is, it is never too late to start collecting baseball cards. I thought, okay. So when I was a kid, I decided a number of times that all my friends were so far ahead of me that it didn't make sense for me to start collecting cards. How ridiculous. I could have started at 9 instead of 8. So the message is, every time I think it's too late to do something because I'm too old or it's already been done, I've been wrong. People that convince themselves not to do something because it's too late are going to miss many, many opportunities. And my brother-in-law actually last night added, and I have discovered that this time softens the rough edges of life, which I thought was very endearing. We're on lesson 12. Find gratitude in every day, every person, every event. There have been repeated studies that what truly makes people happy Consistently, the #1 trait is gratitude. Finding appreciation for the gifts, the talents, the circumstances, the good fortune, the good friends, for whatever reason that's been bestowed upon us. And gratitude's a lifelong event. It never ends. The reason I can stand in front of you and speak of success actually started with a Washburn professor that hired me right after graduation. Even though out of a class of almost 50 men, he could never remember my name. So, you know, as I think that the foundation that really launched a part of my success is that he actually gave us projects. He allowed us to succeed, he allowed us to fail. But I will tell you one story. So, I don't remember exactly what the words were. Can we do this? So I will tell you what I heard. Carol, I want you to buy a pair of glasses. I said, well, I don't wear glasses, I wear contacts. He goes, well, I want you to buy a pair of glasses just with plain glass because you're too young, you're too blonde, and glasses will make you look smart. So I'm no longer too young, I'm no longer too blonde, and I'm hoping these work today. So I'm going to return to positive psychology and the science of happiness. Studies also show that creativity, renewal, and lifelong learning are also major characteristics of a high-quality, meaningful life, as well as the great markers of successful individuals. And this comment came from a Mormon bishop. We go across. Our clients are, you name a religion, we can call on any of them for prayers. Your talents and gifts are entrusted to you for the sake of the common good. Your presence enriches all of us. Every moment of life is a gift. Live them fully and cherish each one. And again, sitting around the table last night and talking to family, my brother-in-law's comment was, the most important thing I've learned about myself is that I'm at my best when I'm serving others. I learned so much by asking other people for their comments. It really kind of enhanced my own thinking and expanded my own, thought process of contributions. Lesson 13, we're almost there. I think everyone is familiar with Oprah Winfrey and the challenges that she had to get where she is. Highly successful, but if you don't know her journey, you don't know how much she probably appreciates where she is. So her quote, which you can read there, is, you want your work to be meaningful because meaning is what brings the real richness to your life. And what I know is that if you do work that you love and the work fulfills you, the rest will come. One of the insights that I got from a gentleman out of New York was things. He said, I would share these insights. Pursue unique entrepreneurial opportunities. And his comment was like you and I. Perhaps spend some time in a large company, but then try a mid or small company, or have one of your own. Secondly, seek alignment between what you love doing and your career. And knowing some of you in this room, I know you have done that. And 3, continuously invest in your knowledge and capabilities. Okay? I hate to tell you this, but I keep forgetting that I was a psychology major. Because I've immersed myself in business, and my advanced degrees are all in business. But the combination of the two is what I think actually, in retrospect, gives me the greatest satisfaction. Because although we manage money, it's about a lot more than money. My team always hears me say it's about more than money. It's the satisfaction of being a family guide, of becoming a part of our clients' success. It's allowed me to have a personal investment in our clients as well as supporting them in their financial success. Sometimes my clients call me the enforcer, but usually it's a nicer comment. Speaking of challenges, how did this woman ever do what she did? How did she ever do this? Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. Again, I'll go back to one of the comments that Richard Ross made. Get to know your professors, get to know the other people, get to know the people that are sitting next to you. They're willing to help you outside of the table, the classroom, the office. It just takes the initiative to ask. And I will add, expand your circle to include all you meet. Some of my closest friends have come from casual meetings, from alumni groups. And someone asked me, how did you meet Cynthia Heath? And I think that Julianne invited Cindy and I to a dinner in St. Louis. I knew Cindy on paper because she's head of corporate executive benefits, and many of my clients were from Emerson, so we would talk back and forth. I took these copious notes. Distinct, quick, fast, don't waste your time. That was my knowledge of what I call Cindy Cynthia. So Cindy and I arrive at the restaurant, and I think there was a blizzard. And so we're sitting there and start talking. And so Cindy said, now, you went to Washburn. When did you graduate? 1971. So did I. Where did you grow up? I grew up in Topeka. So did I. Did you know so-and-so? Yes, I did. Did you know so-and-so? Yes. Did you take this class? Yes, I did. I mean, we have parallel lives. And she goes, okay, well, I've got a test for you. My first job when I was 16, which I'm not telling you, Terry, you'll be disinherited if you repeat it. There were 10 16-year-olds. There were 10 16-year-olds. And Cindy was one of them, and I was one of them, in Topeka, Kansas. And now she is one of my best friends. Parallel lives, we actually refer to ourselves as fraternal twins. So Cindy and I were actually talking, and we speculated about what would have happened if we had attended college somewhere other than Washburn. And our conclusion was that we would have missed out on an exceptional community of people, such as yourselves, that we would have missed the indomitable spirit and unforgettable memories that we've collected here. And we proudly realize that we are Washburn. And that's a pretty noble thing to be. Jeannie, we're coming down to the end. Lesson 15, we can help. I love this quote. If I have seen further than others, it's by standing on the shoulders of giants. And I feel that I've been a part of that. That there have been so many people that have preceded me, that have helped me and supported me, acknowledged me, worked with me, that have allowed me to be where I am today. I actually consider my personal success to be like a ladder, standing up and bounced against a wall. Every rung has been supported by someone or something that I've been willing to say yes to. Actually, I've actually gone through life, my own mantra has been, when I've been approached by an uncomfortable situation, I always say to myself, what is the worst thing that could happen? And then I think about it, I said, okay, I could fail. And then I say, okay, so if I fail, what is the worst thing that could happen? And somehow, it makes you realize that there's opportunities you should never pass up. So, the final piece of advice that I received was from a very wise attorney who always referred to the 4 B's. Be on time, be well dressed, be prepared, be brief. So I skipped the last one, sorry. My last lesson is that Washburn's giants are unforgettable. People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Thank you.